Welcome to The Appleseed, the storytelling podcast from BYU Radio, where your family can gather for great stories from great storytellers in every episode. Stories bring us together, and we hope the stories on the show will spark memories and thoughts that you can share with the people you love. I'm your host, Sam Payne, and today it's all about summertime stories, warm days, summer sports, tall glasses of lemonade, and no school. And first up on the show is a musical story from Bill Harley. Have you ever spent an afternoon at the municipal swimming pool as a kid? Well, you'll see yourself in this story. Ever bought too much junk food at the pool snack bar? You'll see yourself in this story. Ever had a summer crush on someone who seemed unattainable? Oh man, you'll see yourself in this story. Here's Bill, recorded live in the Appleseed studio with a story called High Dive.
Thank you. Okay, this is a tragic story. But it happened a long time ago. You'll probably laugh. Because tragedy plus distance equals humor, right? Summer came and school was done. There was no more work, it was time for fun. The weather got hot, but I wanted to get cool, so I headed down to the swimming pool. I'm talking about the public pool, where they let everybody in, even me. I got to the pool, my friend Mike was waiting. He said, "Come on, Bill, no hesitating. We're gonna have fun just sure as we're alive. Jumping off that old high dive. The high dive reached up into the clouds. It should have been illegal and never been allowed. It was way too dangerous, way too high. 17 miles up there in the sky now in all the years that I'd been alive. You know, I never jumped off that old high dive. Oh, I watched my other friends scream and jump. They called me a chicken, they called me a chump. I didn't care, 'cause I was still alive. But it just so happened that summer season, I wanted to jump, I had a reason. Someone at the pool, I must confess that I dearly wanted to impress. It was Christy, the lifeguard. Christy, the heaven open and the angels sang. Christy, the lifeguard, she was 17. Christy, I was 9. We were the perfect match. Christy sat in her lifeguard chair, combing her long and golden hair. Her skin was tan, her eyes were green. She was the prettiest girl that I had ever seen. And I had seen a lot of girls at my elementary school. None of them looked like Christy. So I thought, you know, this just might be my chance to get that girl to give me a glance. She'd finally know that I was alive when she saw me jump off that old high dive, my body arcing out over the water, muscles rippling over my 57-pound frame. Our two hearts would beat as one. So this time, when Mike said let's, I said okay, yeah, sure, you bet. I'm ready to rock, I'm really pumped, baby. Watch me climb, watch me jump. So Mike and I headed off to climb the ladder. We got halfway there, I saw there was something the matter. A million other kids there, my oh my, wait to take their turn to jump and die. I rolled my eyes, I said, oh great. There was nothing to do but stand there and wait. Mike said, "See my place, Bill. I'll be right back." He returned in a minute with the beautiful snack. I am talking about frozen Milky Way candy bar, 5-pound bag of Skittles, 256-ounce jug of grape soda pop. I drank the whole thing, 'cause I love those natural flavors. Well, it took us about 45 minutes or so just to get to the ladder, but don't you know, after all that waiting, it was easy to see. With the soda pop inside, I had to go to the bathroom, if you know what I mean. So when Mike said climb, I said a hammer. It seems I have this little dilemma. I said, I'm sorry, Mike, I gotta go. He said, Bill, can't you hold it for a minute or so? Don't get out of line now. Well, I was still about to get out of line when I happened to look over one more time. There she was, sitting in a chair, her dark brown skin, her long blonde hair. It was Christy, a lifeguard twirling and untwirling the whistle on her finger. Christy, she looked so beautiful being bored. Christy, a lifeguard. Christy, Kristi with a heart over the I. So I saw the wisdom in his explanation. I decided to continue to my destination. I put my hands on the rail, said, I will not stop until I reach the very top. The only problem was there were 123 kids ahead of me on the ladder. So every step now took me high. While my situation grew more dire, I yelled up ahead, hey, don't be slow. Jump right now, cause I gotta go. I was almost at the very top. One more time, the line just stopped. Some kid up there was afraid he'd drown, and I made the mistake of looking down. Ooh-wee. Those people look like ants down there. I looked out across the horizon. I could see the curve of the earth. Turkey buzzards circling over my head, looking for something to pick over. There I was at the final rung. What was I thinking? What had I done? Way up there, the air was thin. The diving board swaying in the wind. My stomach wheezed and moaned and churned. It was too late now, it was my turn. I walked to the edge of the diving board. I looked down and said, this is dangerous. They shouldn't let children do this. Actually, I don't think they do it anymore, but back then they just didn't care. You know, my teeth were chattering, my legs were shaking, and I was scared. There was no faking. What was worse now, don't you know? I really had to go. Suddenly I heard a piercing sound rising up in the air from down on the ground. A whistle was blowing. A voice called out, jump off right now. I heard someone shout. It was Christy calling just to me because she loved me. So I knew what I had to do. I said goodbye, sweet world, nice knowing you. I held my breath, I closed my eyes, and I jumped off into the sky. And I was flying above it all, soaring in the air like a bird, turning and wheeling like a hawk, like an eagle, like a... Whoa. Wait a minute. I was not a bird. I was not a hawk. I was not an eagle. I was a kid. And I was falling. I looked down at the swimming pool. Now it didn't seem so fresh and cool. Coming up to meet me faster. Clearly headed for disaster. My body started twisting this way and that, when suddenly I was spread out flat. Legs were kicked, Barbs were flapping, everybody looking up to watch what happened. I saw Christy, she was watching me too, as I fell there from out of the blue. I must confess I was a little surprised when I saw her cover up both her eyes. And I headed down, down, down from that tower at 687 miles an hour. The water brought me to a sudden stop when I did the world's biggest belly flop. The sound was deafening, eardrums were broken, buildings and bridges rumbled and shook. Hundreds of miles away, people stopped in their tracks and wondered what kind of experiment the government was conducting. Told you it was sad. And I told you you would laugh. Well, I must have passed out, 'cause things went black. The next thing I knew, I was on my back, floating in the water, in the bright sunlight, and a voice called out, "Are you all right?" Ah! It was Christy, calling just to me. She come to save me, because she loved me. She said, "Stay like that, I'll give you a ride." She started to tow me over to the side. "Christy," I said, "your name's like a song." I relaxed in her arms, and something went wrong. I've forgotten about everything I was holding inside. We were almost to the ladder at the side when somebody yelled and somebody cried. I'd been feeling great, just fun and mellow, but it seemed behind me I was leaving a trail of yellow. Christy saw it, began to scream, "That is the grossest thing that I have ever seen." The next thing I knew, when I looked around, she climbed out of the water, left me there to drown. I said, "Christy, don't you love me?" She said, "What do you mean? You're a 9-year-old and you peed in the pool." When I climbed out of the water, now I could see everybody at the pool was just laughing at me. Everybody laughing, so it seemed, except of course for the girl of my dreams. For some reason, Christy was standing underneath the outside shower. I don't know why, she had just been in the pool. Well, that's all that happened. There's no more to say, though they had to shut the pool down there that day. I never went back there, my time was spent, but people still talk about the accident. I don't know where Christy is today. I never saw her again, but that's okay. I'm just glad to be here, breathing alive, but don't ever, 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 ever ask me to jump off some old high dive.
That was the great Bill Harley with High Dive. We worked on a really fun podcast series with Bill about a young detective named Quentin Manning and his assistant detective Sam Turnquist and their attempts to solve crimes at their middle school. Search for Quentin Manning wherever you listen to podcasts and you'll find it. We think you'll really love it. I love Bill's high dive story, and it seems to bring back a summer memory every time I hear it. And this time, it made me think of my hometown, a little farming community that didn't have a municipal swimming pool of its own. There was one a couple of towns over, though, and the good town fathers in my town instituted a swim bus. Maybe you had one of those. Some towns do. Every Wednesday in the summer, just like every kid in my little town, my brother and I rode our bikes down to the city park, and there'd be a school bus waiting there. And at 12:30 sharp, it would pull out of the parking lot full of all of us kids in our bathing suits, each one of us with a couple of dollars in our fists or folded into our towels. And that bus would haul all of us the 7 miles or so to the municipal pool, where we'd hand over 50 cents and then spend the afternoon cannonballing off the pool edge or playing Marco Polo or scarfing down frozen Charleston Chew candy bars and red vines from the snack bar. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd climb out of the pool and climb back on the bus and head home. And if you had a cassette tape of a band you liked and you could get it to the bus driver before anyone else got their tape to him, he'd slide it into the tape deck, and that would be our soundtrack on a drive home. It was pretty close quarters on those Wednesday pool trips. Close quarters waiting for the bus, close quarters on the drive, close quarters of the pool, close quarters on the way home. All those different kids piled into pretty much the same space. And we were miles away from our folks. No cell phones and no way to get home until the bus took everyone home at 4. And for it to work, we had to be a little careful with each other, treat each other well, look out for one another, help each other out when there were problems. And I can't help but think we all learned a thing or two on those summer Wednesdays that's still with us. At least I hope we did. After all, it can get to be pretty close quarters with all these different folks crammed into the same space with one another, can't it? And even now, we're all on the bus together. And that's where Bill's story took me. Where did it take you? And who will you take along? There's a lot coming up, but I wanted to take just a moment to let you know about another show from among the BYU Radio family of podcasts. The podcast is called Constant Wonder, and it's hosted by Marcus Smith. In each episode, Marcus takes you on kind of a quest to find the awe and wonder in all nature, human or wild. Not just interested in the natural world, interested in human nature as well. Marcus's guests tell fascinating stories and talk about experiences that have left them awestruck. You'll love the podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all kinds of places to listen to Constant Wonder anytime you need a little dose of awe or wonder in your life. Constant Wonder from BYU Radio. We're so glad to have you with us today on the Appleseed Podcast. And our next story comes to us from Carolina Quiroga, whose summer obsession was watching television shows by herself all day when she was a little girl. But what happens when her father makes her get a summer job? Let's find out as Carolina tells us the story of the Paleta Girl.
So, I'm an only child. Believe it or not, I've always been shy, especially when it comes to talking to strangers or making phone calls. I'm like an ostrich looking for a hole in the ground to hide. My hands sweat. I stumble over my words. My papi, afraid this could impact my future, decided to help me overcome my fears. So when I turned 11 years old, Papi decided it was time for me to work. Now, my papi is one of those parents that cannot have someone sitting idly at home doing nothing. It feels like a waste of life. And that's fair because of the time I was showing a strong interest in the TV. For the past 10 summers, I would wake up at 6 a.m. to watch the Smurfs continue with Thundercats, whoa! Then Pink Panther, Inspector Gadget, He-Man and the Master of the Universe, Ninja Turtles, and on and on and on. And I would wrap up my day around 6 p.m. By the time my papi came back home, my eyes looked like squares. He would say, if she keeps watching cartoons, she's going to rot her brains out. Ugh, parents. Anyway, my papi's desire to polish this rough diamond that I was coincided with a major event in our lives. We moved to a new neighborhood. It was a 3-story house in a new-built condo, and people were just starting to move in. So I did what any other smart kid would have done when they have endless amount of time and no friends. I marathoned through cartoons. And that is when my papi devised an evil plan to unglue me from the TV. Since we have moved in around February, Papi had been taking me to a place about a 10-minute drive from our home to eat paletas. A paleta is like an ice cream on a stick, but made of real fruit. My favorite paleta was chocolate peanuts. Every time we went to that paleta place, I felt I had earned a medal. It was this special time between padre e hija, father and daughter. So I should have known that when we started going more frequently, Papi was up to something. Instead, I thought I was becoming my papi's best friend. So by the third weekend of May, Papi asked, "Hija, what do you think about opening your own paleta shop?" I thought,
I don't know how to make ice cream. I don't know how to make anything at all.
especially after my mommy banned me from the kitchen after I almost burned the house down trying to bake her a cake for Mother's Day. Now back to that horrendous moment when my papi is pitching that hideous business idea. He said, "Yes, you can buy them from here and resell them." And I thought,
Resell them where? Also, I don't have any money. I'm only 11 and a half.
my papi anticipated those questions. "Don't worry, you just resell them to the neighbors. And about the money, I'll lend you the money. And don't worry, you'll pay me back once you break even." Did I mention my papi is a businessman? Yeah. Well, at that moment, a hole opened in the ground. My stomach crumbled, and I imagined lines and upon lines of people coming to buy my paletas. I was gonna have to be nice, do math, and say, "Gracias." Not to mention my precious time in front of the TV. Gone. No. And then Papi said, "When should you start?" A rhetorical question because, of course, he already knew when. Then he went to talk to the paleta shop owner, and he made a deal. Next Saturday, we were coming to get 50 of their most sold paletas. That next week, Papi encouraged me to design a flyer to advertise the business. So it came out like this: Deliciosas paletas Casa A12. Delicious paletas House A12. Reluctantly, I placed one outside our home and the other one on the bulletin board at the entrance of our condo. And I hoped that the scarcity of signs would draw minimum attention, the sales would slow down, I would have to declare bankruptcy, and sacrifice myself eating the inventory. Brilliant. Next Saturday, the day of the grand opening, I complained of a stomachache, so I wouldn't have to go. But Papi bought me some adult diapers. Didn't I say my papi is relentless? Papi picked me up. We got the paletas. We brought them home. I threw them in the freezer. I ran upstairs, turned the TV on with the volume all the way up to hush any unwelcoming noises. And Papi stayed downstairs waiting for customers. And guess what? That afternoon, not a single paleta was sold. Papi said, "No te preocupes, hija. Don't you worry, child. Things are always slow at first. But tomorrow after church service, you should pass some flyers. You'll see, the word will get out." No! Sunday. After church service, Papi made me stand outside to hand out flyers to those people he recognized lived in our condo. And it was at that ominous moment when a girl about my age, with 2 ponytails and one of those orthodontic headgears that they used in the 80s to strengthen your teeth, well, she approached me and she asked,
Can I have a flyer?
Cautiously, I asked,
Do you live at Condominio Pio 12?
that was the name of the place I lived. And she said,
No, I don't.
Oh, I knew it. She had been sent by Gargamel, the Smurfs' arch enemy. Yeah, he had done it before. Oh, and so I said,
Then you cannot have it.
but that girl was on a mission. And so she said,
I don't live there, but mi abuela, mi abuelo, mi tía, my 3 cousins, my grandma, my aunt, they live there.
and then with that weird, wired smile, she grabbed a flyer from my hands and she walked away. no! In that moment, I almost fainted, imagining that girl coming with her abuela, abuelo, tia, tío, 3 cousins, 7 parrots, 80 cats, 90 dogs, all her enemies and friends, and all the Slimers from all around the world. The Ghostbusters couldn't save me from this. I was gonna have to be nice, do math, and say gracias. That afternoon, I went to the bathroom 50 times. Yet nothing happened. But that next week, I was on high alert. Any bum, boom, ding dong, would make my heart stop. Well, next Saturday, Papi was getting impatient, so he went to check on the flyers, and he found out that the one I put outside our home was in a non-visible spot. To that, I said,
It's in my short jeans. I can't reach that high.
Then Papi found out that the one I had put up on the bulletin board had been taken down because they needed to put other announcements. And so my Papi convinced the guardman to let us put ours back on, and his help was rewarded with a tasty paleta on the house. Later, Papi called that the cost of doing business, yet I was the one drowning in debt. Well, that afternoon, Papi forced me to sit outside our home and wait for customers. So I brought a book, and I hoped I would have an uninterrupted reading. And I did, for about an hour. But then, a 5-year-old boy comes and stands right there in front of me, and he looked at me. No, he stared at me as if he was running an inspection. So I put my book down, and I stuck my tongue out. Duh. Oh, that boy ran away, and I thought, I got this. But 5 minutes later, that boy came back with his older sister, a girl about my age. And then that girl caught me by surprise, because with the sweetest voice, she said,
Hi. My cousin said that they were selling paletas at Casa A12. Is this house A12?
With growing suspicion, I said, It is.
Oh, this is great. I would like chocolate peanuts, and my brother would like vanilla. Gracias.
I said, Wait. And I went back inside, closed the door behind me, and I thought, how to ruin the sale. Because clearly she had been sent by Dr. Claus, Inspector Gadget's arch enemy. I mean, when you watch so much TV, you ended up seeing enemies everywhere. So I thought maybe I could just pretend they weren't there. But that was too obvious. And then I thought, what would the Pink Panther do? Oh, I know. I would go outside and say, oh, sorry, we're run out of paletas for the day, the week, and the whole summer. But at the same time, I was conflicted because she liked the same flavor I liked, chocolate peanuts. What are the odds? When you are a child and someone likes the same color you like, you are besties for life. But when I'm trying to make a decision, Papi came and urged me, apure, hurry up. Don't make your customers wait. Grab the paletas, napkins, and change. So I did. And that was my first sale. Later, Papi said, Buen trabajo, hija. Good job, kiddo. You'll see. They'll bring more customers. Oh, my stomach hurt. And so they did. That entire week, I had a lot of customers. But they were all my height or shorter. And they loved cartoons. They were children, my people. But the biggest challenge was about to come. Next Saturday, after I had taken care of a couple of boys, the bell rang. Ding dong! I went to open it expecting children, but then I saw 2 big beach sandals attached to 2 long, hairy legs, a well-developed torso, strong biceps, and the head of the most handsome 20-year-old man in the condo, Oscar, with his girlfriend. And so he said, Hola, chica. I heard you're selling paletas, so how much is it and what flavors do you have? I said nothing. Then I heard his girlfriend whispering, "I think you're scaring her." I said nothing. And it was at that moment when my whole world was blurring out that I saw shadows of people lining up behind them. And when I thought I was about to faint, that girl who had been my first sale, do you remember her? She came from the line and she stood right there between Oscar and myself and she said,
We have different flavors, but our most sold are chocolate peanuts. 2 of those?
He said, "Sure thing." And it was at that moment that I turned into a zombie. I went back inside and if you don't speak zombie language, this is what happened. I went inside, I grabbed those paletas, 2 paletas, the napkins and change. I went outside, I handed it to her, and she took over the operation for the rest of the afternoon. Yes. Later, at the end of the day, she said,
It looks like you owe me a paleta.
Oh, I ran back inside and I brought those. One for her, one for me, because I had been through such traumatic experience. And we talked. And we discovered we had so much in common, except for the fear of talking to strangers, right? And yes, in time, we became best friends. And her family, regular customers. By the end of the summer, my puppy didn't say much about the business and everything, but I knew he was proud of me. And I was able to pay my loan back to Bank Puppy. And I used my gainings, I invested them in my new best friend's business idea, cupcakes. But we didn't do that well because I had a baking record. And we went back to school. Now, of course, I still sometimes stumble over my words, but I'm doing better. And a lot of times people think I'm pulling their leg or I'm a tough negotiator, and I let them believe it. Now, for those of you wondering about my TV addiction, what can I say? We got Netflix. No, I'm kidding. I traded it for a good friendship, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Thank you.
That was Carolina Quiroga with The Paleta Girl. What are some of your fondest summer memories? Any high dive memories? Summer crush memories? Summer job memories? I bet you've got some stories. We hope you'll share them with the people you love. In fact, we hope you'll share the stories with us. We might share them on the show. You can tag us on social media or send us a message at theappleseed@byu.edu. That's the Appleseed, all one word, at byu.edu. We always love to hear from our listeners. One listener named Tiffany Flavel left us a comment saying, "The Appleseed is relevant to all generations. What a brilliant art form to share. Grateful to be able to hear these storytellers on your podcast." Tiffany, we're so glad you're enjoying the show, and we love the fact that you look at it as something that can be shared between generations. That's exactly how we hope people will listen. We loved hearing from Tiffany, and we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to leave us a comment on a podcast platform like Apple Podcast or Spotify, or again, you can email us at theappleseed@byu.edu. We want to thank Bill Harley and Carolina Quiroga for sharing their stories with us today. You've listened to their stories. Now it's time to share some of your own. The Appleseed is produced by me, Sam Payne, Wendy Folsom, and Brian Tanner. Assistant producers include Garrett Gunnell, Carrie Griggs, Kay Hendrickson, and Nico Wetzel. And our post team is Trent Reimschussel and DJ Cromarty. We're pleased and proud to be among the many podcasts produced by the BYU Radio family of shows. If you want more great storytelling for the whole family, then search for our companion podcasts, Kaboom for original audio adventures, and Wink, Stories for Better Bedtimes. All our podcasts can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the BYU Radio app or at byuradio.org. Don't forget to subscribe, rate us, leave us a review. That's how the shows grow. I'm Sam Payne, and we can't wait to be with you again on the Appleseed. Hi, Sam here, and I want to take just a moment to let you know about a new podcast from BYU Radio. It's called Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us. And it's a podcast in which you hear stories from people who experienced something, either tough advice from a close friend or engagement with somebody on the other end of the political spectrum, conversations that made them really uncomfortable. But instead of backing away or getting angry or defensive, they kind of leaned in. They sort of stuck with the discomfort and heard out the person that was communicating with them. And they're glad they did. Not because it changed their position, because it clarified their own beliefs. And Uncomfy, the podcast, features stories of folks who engaged in that way. It's really helping me engage with a world in which division really seems to be the norm. Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us is the name of the podcast. And, if you listen to the Appleseed, then you've heard us say stories bring us together. It's kind of how I feel about the conversations that happen on Uncomfy. You can find it wherever you might be listening. You can watch it on the BYU Radio app. It's a video and audio podcast. There are lots of great ways to engage with these conversations. Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us. Check it out.